Hey everyone, so we're going to dive right in with Andreina Rosales. Wait until you hear what she has to say about screen time and the autism correlation. Welcome, first and foremost. Let's just start off with why and how did you become interested in the correlation between autism like symptoms and screen time?
It started off when my son was born. So he was born prematurely at 28 weeks. And one of the things that I remember was the doctor kind of just giving me like the laundry list of possible issues that he could have because he was born premature and because of oxygen and all these things that could occur because of prematurity. And as he's talking to me, I remember him saying the possibility that he could develop autism. And it was those words that sort of triggered a curiosity for me because as a special education teacher who had worked with autistic children my whole life, I had never heard someone use the words develop autism because my whole
Mm-hmm.
life I thought, okay, well, you're born with autism. That's what I've been told as a teacher. That's what I know from my schooling. And I had nothing else to do but just read the entire time that he was in the NICU. And I just started reading and curiosity building to the connection of autism and brain development.
Sure.
I remember thinking back to the year 2000, like 2005, all those years in the 2000 age when I used to babysit a little bit. And I did notice a difference in the kids that I babysat that did have devices and those that didn't have devices. And I don't know how the connection between the two occurred in my brain, but I thought, well, let me see when autism rates have started to rise the most. And it was the year 2000. And I thought, well, the year 2000 is the when we began the digital age and autism rates are rising since the year 2000. I feel like there's a connection there. And I started to just Google the words autism and screen time. And I came across this article of a doctor in Romania stating how there were children in Romania who had been raised in orphanages with devices and they had autistic symptoms. But once they were adopted into a family, their autism symptoms started to diminish a little bit. And
Mm.
from there, I just couldn't let go on the topic and I needed to know more about the relationship between screen time and autism.
Yeah, and I'm sure because you're not allowed to say that certain things cause autism. You're just not. It's so triggering for parents. So I'm sure you got a lot of heat for even suggesting that, dare I suggest, screens can cause autism like symptoms. What has the reaction been like from the general, let's just call it the mainstream public?
And you're absolutely right. There's that argument of it's correlated, it's not a causation. And it could be 50 plus years before we can say that there is a cause of screen time and autism. And that's where I get a lot of the heat and a lot of the biting back from families because they say, oh, so you're saying I gave my kid autism. And that's not at all what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that there is a relationship. And what is such a problem in exploring this relationship? If somebody told me that there was a relationship between, I don't know, carrots and eyesight, and it's a positive relationship, I'm definitely going to look into carrots and eyesight. But with screen time, because it's become such a pacifier for parents,
Yes,
and I know this too because I've done it myself, I
sure.
understand that it is a triggering subject, especially when there's that big misconception that autistic children get soothed by screen time, and a lot of people say, "Oh, well, it helps my child regulate." And then when you ask them,
I
what does that
can't
mean?
stand that.
What does it mean when your child is regulated?" They can't answer that question. So how can you tell me it
Yeah.
helps your child regulate if you don't know what regulation looks like?
Exactly. And it's so interesting. We just did a great episode with Amanda Texera on nervous system regulation. And everyone wants to say in the mainstream world, like, being regulated means calm. And and that's just not true. Being regulated means being able to move through your emotions and you have a normal response to some sort of action. You don't have an extreme response to something, right? Like, yeah, if your child is running into the street and a car is about to hit them, you shouldn't be calm. That is actually dysregulation,
Exactly.
right? So I think, because I hear this a lot too, I think when parents say the screen, like the tablet, is regulating my child, that's code for it keeps them quiet. It has shut
Yeah.
them up. And mommy is overstimulated and it's a pacifier, like you said, it's a tool. That's all they mean. It means they don't want to hear the constant questions, the nagging, whatever it is. So I'll tell you what I think about screens. And this is my very non professional opinion. It's a tool like anything else, just like a pacifier is a tool. And the thing is, it would be ideal if we could see it as a neutral tool. It should not be used as a bribe, as a reward. Just, hey, yeah, you know what? Like, I wish moms could just be honest, really, and say, Mom needs a break. Like we've been hanging out, maybe for 8 or 10 hours. I'm going to do my own thing. I need a break. And I wish we could just be really honest and say, yeah, these screen free activities would be more ideal. But I am going to choose to let you utilize this tool, the screen, and I'm going to make the best choice available to us. We're going to do something low stimulating, and there's going to be a timer on it. It's going to be for like 30 minutes. Um, Instead of lying to ourselves and saying, but Miss Rachel's educational. See, it's the lying about the screen is and what its purpose is that actually grinds my gears.
And you said it. Let's be honest, moms, for a second. And I'm going to be an honest mom for a second. I get it from the perspective of I'm going to use this for a second because I need a break. But I also feel guilty about it because my son's already at the age, he's already going to turn 3. And that's the age where, screen time is okay, quote
Right.
unquote, for kids. But I found myself using it, and I'm gonna be honest, when my mental health was going downhill.
Makes
Because I've had a
sense.
physical injury where I couldn't move my shoulder for about a week and a half, and that caused so many limitations in what I could do with my kids. And what did I
Yes.
do? I'm gonna give them screen time because it's
Yeah.
and I didn't say educational to myself, but I said because it's a break. And I was honest with
Yes.
myself. But 30 minutes turned into an hour turned into an hour and a half. And then I'm not even kidding, maybe 3 days later, after that injury had first started, already the tantrum started. Already the second he would wake up, Mama TV, Mama TV. And I was honest with myself. I was pacifying my children with screen time because physically and mentally could not handle it at that moment. And that's when I just had to reach out for help, and I reached out to family and friends and just like, "Hey, like I need just like 30 minutes to like relax." And that's the hard part when you don't have that support system for moms that
That's
don't.
exactly it. Right. You mentioned screens are a pacifier. Screens also have become the village, right? So, like when we lived in hunter gatherer societies, aside from the fact that, indigenous cultures are living in huts and they're, not really using electricity, right? You have 4 to 5 caregivers. So, you can always pass a child along to a grandparent, an aunt, a sibling, right? So, you don't need screens for entertainment. You had a very legitimate reason and to use a screen. I mean, I definitely don't think you should be hard on yourself at all. And I think the important thing is it was short term. You saw it for what it was. You're not lying to yourself like,
Okay.
this is going to teach my child. And I did that for the entire fourth trimester. So about 3 months because my kids are 26 months apart. I was glued to the sofa breastfeeding, like cluster feeding on demand with my newborn. My son was just over 2 years old. But I'm like, okay, we're not going to be doing Coco Melon, Paw Patrol, Miss Rachel. My kids have never seen Miss Rachel. So we co watched Toy Story. And that was the first
Mhm.
time we really, as a family, were like really indulging on the screen. So it would be like an hour and a half of a kid's movie or something. But I think that's very different from, I think the most extreme version that I see out in the wild is when kids are in strollers at playgrounds or parks,
God.
at kid centric places, looking at screens. I will never forget. I was at this really big park locally, brought both the kids, like ages 1 and 3. My son is so social. He's such a social butterfly. He's so outgoing. He even will go up to kids like 5 years older than him and say, Hi, my name's Julian. Like, what's your name? Want to play? But these kids, let me tell you, they've become zombified
Yep.
because and I see it too, like they look at you with this dead stare. Okay. They look straight through you, and that's how I can tell that they're addicted to screens too. And then I'll see little kids too, like 8 years old. They're playing games. They're watching shows on their parents' phone at a playground instead of playing with kids. That
Yep.
is how I know we're really doomed.
And you said a key word. It's the dead stare. And what you mentioned about the village, I find it insane when parents tell me that Miss Rachel is a part of their
Oh,
family.
it makes me
And
sick.
it makes me sick too because I'll see parents say, "Oh, we don't hire a sitter. We just play Miss Rachel for 2, 3 hours." Or I'll see parents say, I can't believe I'm so grateful to have Miss Rachel be a part of my family. One, she doesn't know who you are.
Yeah,
Two,
she
she's
doesn't care
not
about
a
you.
part of your family. So I think it's just so I find it weird. It's like a little bit of a cult following when
It
people say that
is.
she's a part of their family. And your story about your son going up and saying hi, it it broke my heart a little bit because my son used to be very, very reserved. He
Mm,
would not say hi to strangers, and I do think it has to do with, like, the prematurity and just being poked and
yes.
prodded at such an early age that he's very hesitant to strangers. And one
Yeah.
time we were at the doctor's office, and I'm not even kidding when I say he was the only kid, toddler, not on a cell phone.
I
Everybody
believe
else
it.
was on a cell phone, and out of nowhere, he had never done this until that day. He goes up to a little boy, and he
Oh,
waves
it's
hi.
so cute.
The kid never noticed him because he never
No.
looked up from his phone. And my son just kept looking at me with like a little sad face of I'm saying hi and no one's responding. Even the adults were on their phone. And so
Yeah.
I did like that mom thing where I was like, he's saying hi. And
Yeah.
yeah, like you said, the dead stare of like, you're interrupting me right now. And
I've
nobody
yeah.
unfortunately interacted with him.
It's so sad, and you know what's funny? Parents are always talking about how they need to send their kids to, like, full-time daycare to practice
No.
socialization. Do you wanna know what's even better to help your kid practice socialization? Get them off the damn devices out in public, look up, and start talking to other kids of all
Yep.
ages. It
And
doesn't happen in the little
socializing with them.
sandbox. Yeah. It literally starts with, "Hi." It's really sad. I have conversations with Julian because this has happened a lot at the playground. He'll go up to kids, and I either explain they're going to be shy, which is totally okay. That is
Hmm.
just a variation. Or if it's not because they're shy and they're on a device, I'd remind him, I'd give him positive praise. I said, "You did the right thing by being brave and
I
walking up
love
to
that.
that kid and introducing." And I said, "Never stop doing that. I don't want you to stop doing that because someone decided not to say hi back to you. You did the right thing. That child should have gotten off their phone and talked to you."
I love that. I don't think
You
my
know,
son's old enough to understand that yet, but I'm
N-
definitely stealing that when
soon.
when he's at the age.
Let's talk a little bit more about the scam and the myth of Miss Rachel. I want to really just do some unveiling here. Um, I I think we're about the same age. I'm 35. What about
I'm
you?
32.
Okay, so we're approximately the same age. I don't know about you, but when I was growing up in the early 90s, mid 90s, the shows I loved were like The Big Comfy Couch, Reading
Yes.
Rainbow, Mr. Rogers. Now, and even like the movie Fantasia, which by the way is from like the year 1940, so really
Oh,
old
wow.
school. And it's all classical music. So it is a cartoon by Disney, but it's classical. There's no agenda, there's no propaganda. It's just aesthetically beautiful to listen
Mhm,
to and watch. Now let's talk about some of these other shows. Even old school Sesame Street, right? From the
mhm.
60s to the 90s. They are live action. Yeah, there's puppets, but they're not 3D.
Yep,
There's no fast screen changes, right? And they're very slow. So it really is like you are just hanging out with real people, but they are on a screen. There's no weird
right.
voices, no weird motherese, fake, phony, high-pitched nonsense. Um, so anytime I'm out, like let's say we're just at a children's museum, this or that, there's always someone like it's the Miss Rachel cult. And literally a mom said, "Oh, thank God for Miss Rachel." And I'm like, this is really weird. I do not recall growing up anyone saying, or my mom never told me, like, "Thank God for Mr. Rogers.
Yes, I
Thank
was thinking of
God for
him
the
when you
big
said
comfy
that.
couch. Oh my God, thank God for Sesame Street." It's like, no, this is a tool in your toolkit.
Yes.
This should not make or break your motherhood experience. Why are we putting this woman who is literally profiting off of the attention span of your child on Netflix? Why is she on a pedestal above you, mom? You are outsourcing the most basic communication skills to
Mhm.
this woman who makes money every time your child watches another episode of her show. Let's talk about the rebuttals. I can totally hear right now some parents are like, "What's the problem if my child is learning every time like Miss Rachel comes up? What's the
Yeah.
problem if my child is actually learning how to speak? But look, my child learned all these words." Can you just go into all the myth debunking with
Okay,
her?
so with the whole Miss Rachel misconceptions, a lot of parents, like you said, the rebuttal of they're learning to speak. Learning to speak is not the same thing as learning to communicate. And
Thank you.
to understand a little bit of the change because like you said, we didn't say thank God for Big Comfy Couch. And that was one of my favorite shows. I loved
Same.
that show. That's probably one of the shows my son is going to start watching, both of my kids. But
Yes.
the reason that children's TV even became a thing, it's important to understand that aspect of it. TV for kids started out with one of the startup shows, which was Sesame Street. And the only reason for kids TV is because back in like the 40s and 50s, the only thing we saw on TV was war, was adult
Mm,
content, was the news, and the concern for parents became we are now home together. World War II has ended and we're home together and we're watching TV as a family, and all we see is violence and
mm,
inappropriate content, which is not good for development. So that's when, in like the 1969, I think is when Sesame Street came out, it
yeah.
became a show so that children could have something that they could watch with their parents that was developmentally appropriate. And then we also had Mr. Rogers, I think in like the 1960s or 1970. I'm not sure what year it came out, but the whole point of these shows was emotional development, was self-regulation. Especially with Mr. Rogers, it was teaching that human connection and being able
Yeah.
to speak to other people. And the shows then transitioned into more of what we see now of let's consistently teach letters, let's consistently teach numbers, because then we go into this wave of FCAT. I don't know if you remember FCAT, but we go into
Yes.
this wave
The
of,
testing, right? The Florida testing
yes,
system?
look,
Or
I forgot
what
what
does
it was,
FCAT
but
stand for
it was
again?
Florida something something
Let me
test.
let me
Because, yeah, but it was like you said, it was the testing. I don't remember exactly what the acronyms represent, but it was standardized testing. What is it?
the Florida Comprehensive Assessment Test. I remember this
There you
because
go.
I went to school in Florida from 99 to '08 when I graduated high school. It's a state mandated testing program used in Florida from 1998, so a
Mhm.
year before I started school in Florida, to 2004 to measure student achievement in reading, mathematics, science, and writing based on the Sunshine State standards. Yeah, so what is the tie between FCAT and how shows changed to learning
Well, it's
letters?
not just FCAT, it's the fact of standardized testing where we start to really drill into kindergarten students,
Right.
numbers, letters, colors, everything that honestly, you can learn that later on in life. There's no
Yeah.
necessity, especially when I see some of these baby videos that, like you said, Miss Rachel has created. There's no necessity for a literal baby to know
Yeah.
their colors.
I
If
know.
a child, and then, like you said, parents say, oh, well, he can speak and he knows all his colors. What does it matter? If your child is not coming up to you and saying, Mom, I want the orange circle vegetable, or I want the
Mhm.
orange circle fruit, sorry, then their communication is not communication. It's just you're able to speak. But if I speak gibberish and I walk around my house saying, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. If I could walk around my house saying that and I'm not actually communicating anything, then that's not communication. Yes, your child has
You're
developed
parroting.
speech.
You're a
Exactly.
parrot, and you're showing your voice box functions. You can make sounds.
Mm,
You cannot you're not verbalizing, you're not using action words. You're not
hmm.
giving commands, you're not making requests. Really, it's the difference between can you make commands or requests?
Exactly.
Can you ask for things versus are you a Miss Rachel parrot?
And it's not even just Miss Richards. I mean, it's a lot of her, to be honest, but
Yeah, it's
it's
a
just
lot of
shows
them.
in general. If you're not able to tell orange or if you're not able to say water, then why does it matter if your kid can count to 20, if your kid knows all
Yeah.
his ABCs? And then if you ask a parent, okay, he knows all his colors. Can he label it? If I ask, do you want the orange fruit or do you want the red fruit? If they can't respond with, I want the orange or I want the red, or just the word red or orange,
Yeah.
then that's not communication. And that's such a barrier when trying to
Yeah.
relay this information to parents. Your child is not communicating, they are echoing or they're just repeating what they hear. And it's so unfortunate because the more that you try to tell parents, hey, like, that's not communication, they still will have that rebuttal, like you said, of, well, they're learning to speak and that's all that matters.
I think it's a lot of parents gaslighting themselves and just digging a
Hmm.
deeper hole. I really do because the research is out there. I mean, there's so many amazing resources like you and like this. It's not something so revelatory like, screen time is doing damage. Obviously, the research you have is so nuanced and precise,
Hmm.
and it's taking it down many more notches. But when parents keep convincing themselves it's because it's for education, It's because they're still using the screens as that pacifier. I hear this a lot. Mom needs to make dinner by herself. I cannot be bothered. You are going to watch something. But I also think it's teaching your child that when they're bored, the answer is to numb out and turn to a
Mhm.
device instead of when you're bored, can you find a way to help me around the house? Can you
Yep.
do a puzzle on the floor? Can you draw pictures? We do have this, it's uniquely American, maybe not uniquely American. I see it in countries like China too. But
Mhm.
we have this fixation with being number one,
Yep.
being like we're very competitive, being the best. And I find it interesting because our family's half Swedish, half American. My husband's from Sweden. The education system looks wildly different over there. People are shocked. They treat like it's a true childhood for the first 6 years of life. It's just
As
free
it should be.
play. Yes, as it should be. And that's what the research shows is best. You should not be pushing early academics. You should not be pushing reading and writing from a young age. We've been programmed to believe that is the way, and our kids are failures and losers if we don't do it that way, and that they're going to fall behind. But for what standards? Some made up benchmark by the state? It's
Yep.
literally a made up benchmark. It has been proven that kids should come to these things on their own, and they do catch up in their own time. And by starting academics closer to 7 years old instead of 4 to 5 years old, like we do here, it is better. They do not fall behind. In fact, they're usually more successful. And that's what they've been doing in Scandinavia.
And yeah, in Scandinavia, Denmark, Sweden,
Yep.
like you said,
Yep.
their educational system, Denmark's educational system is one of the best educational systems in the world. And like you said, similar to Sweden, they focus on the child as a child until
Hmm.
6, 7 years old. That's why I'm also very much leaning towards having my son in either Waldorf education or homeschooling because, and people find it crazy when I say this, I don't care if my child knows his ABCs
Same.
until he's about 6, 7 years old. And everyone always,
Yeah.
well, but you're a special education teacher. You should know that early intervention is necessary. Yes, but early intervention is also necessary for basic life skills. If my six
Yes.
year old knows his ABCs, but he can't tie his shoes, I feel like that's a problem. If my
Yes.
6 year old can add 1 plus 1 and 2 plus 2, but he has zero imaginative play, I find that to be a problem because imagination is what
Yes.
solves problems in
Yeah.
life in general.
And that's how they learn. And can I tell you the irony of that? So I am exactly like you. And I was like, I don't care if my son learns to read till he's 7. We're moving to Sweden anyway. You know what I mean? Or like, we'll homeschool if we stay in Florida. The irony is because I never practiced writing words with him, but apparently he was doing a little bit for fun. It wasn't serious. Like he goes to
Mhm.
a part-time preschool. So for fun, they're having the kids practice writing their name. It only if they want. It's like an invitation. If they don't want to, they don't push it. And I was like, I'm not going to do that at home. That doesn't matter to me for the exact same reasons as you. Now, for fun, seriously for fun, I never ask him to. He writes his name. He's 3.5. He writes his name, all of his friends' names. And I'm like, well, would you looky there? Because I never pushed it and I never told him I cared about this. He actually did just come to it on his own. He's self led, it's really child led. And the kids, where their parents are like, you better write your name, you got to fix that letter J, those are the kids that are going to back off because they're like, I don't like that pressure.
And it's a lot with regulation too, because if you are being told since the age of 2, because realistically speaking, most of America, and I say this just out of my own thoughts, probably has their kids in daycare because of the
Yeah.
financial situation in this country. But they start with ABCs and they start with the numbers at the age of 2. So if you are being told at such a young age, this is what matters, this is what I need you to learn, then other things are going to fly out the door. My independent skills are going to fly out the door. If I'm not, and potty training, that's a big
Yep.
one. There's a delay in potty training because what's more important? Should I learn my letters and numbers or should I learn how to use the bathroom by myself? That, like you said, it's letting them build that own interest is that
Yes.
internal motivation. Internal
Yeah.
motivation lasts so much longer than external motivation. And YouTube videos, all these quote unquote educational content creators, they are not making educational content. They are making content that is going to consistently be viewed. Because back in the day, people made their money from selling products, from
Yes.
selling toys, from selling the Barbies, from selling the stuffed animal, or I don't know, like the little pinball machines. from the actual product is where the money was made. Now it's made from attention. It's made from how many views somebody gets
Yeah.
on their video. So I'm going to try my hardest to make sure that a video is extremely enticing to a toddler or to a baby because that's how I make my money. It's from the views, right? And that's the
Yeah.
mentality that parents don't realize these creators have. They think, oh, it's for the best interest of my child. When it's not. The literal creator of Coco Melon in a conference regarding child development said, there's money to be made in baby watching TV.
Yeah. Yeah, and actually, I would love for you to take us behind the scenes and what is it like for these to create from a psychological level, a financially incentivized level, these high stimulating, highly addictive shows like a Coco Melon or Paw Patrol. What are the creators thinking? How are they trying to, jigger the scenes around to make them highly palatable for children and addictive?
The number one thing that I've noticed and I've seen also in the research, because I don't just research screen time and autism, I research from the developer's perspective because how else am I going to understand how this is happening unless I put myself in their shoes? So I started reading a lot of books about creating media for children that is created from researchers and from directors. And one of the things that they focused on was the intensity of colors. Because
Mm,
the real world, the colors of Paw Patrol are not realistic. The colors of Cocomelon are not realistic. And then there's another one that I can't stand, Diana and Roma, I think is what it's called.
never heard of it. Where's that one playing?
It's like children, it's on YouTube too. It's like
Okay. I have no
children
idea what's on
playing.
YouTube Kids. Like, my kids
Yeah,
will never, ever be watching YouTube Kids. I feel like that is just such a wild card. Like,
it
any
is.
ad and show can pop up
Anything.
next. I'm shocked that parents let their kids watch YouTube Kids. I would be so freaked out. Like, what is gonna happen next?
There's so much brain rot on it too, but all these shows, what they have is very, very, very intense colors. Like the green behind me wouldn't be a pastel green. It's going to be a neon green because vision for babies doesn't like fully develop until they're 6 months old. So if I'm watching the world and there's these pastel colors and there's neutral colors, okay, that's great. My vision is developing. But if out of nowhere I start popping up neon colors like those stupid dancing vegetables, I can't stand those little dancing veggies. They're called
Yeah.
Hey Bear Sensory. I don't know why parents love it and they say, "Oh, my kid loves it." Yeah, because it's like being in a club and all the lights are off and all the lights are on and there's flashing lights and there's these like rave lights going on. It's like putting your baby in a rave. You wouldn't put your baby in a rave, but you're doing it when you play screen time. And one of the other tactics is the scene cuts, the amount of times that the scene
Yes.
changes. Babies, they take a lot longer to process as well as toddlers because everything is new. It's like
Yeah.
if you're a little alien. If you're an alien and you land in a different world, it's a new world. You need to observe it to understand it. But if things are changing every millisecond, every 2 seconds, every second, you're going to hyper focus to understand what's going on because I need to really focus on this. Everything is happening so fast. I might miss something if I look away. So scene changes, the intensity of the colors, the musical jingles, all those things are created to catch the attention of children. If you compare, like you said, the older shows, there's not that many scene changes. Like Mr. Rogers, it's very consistent. We're just following him. There's very rarely any scene cuts. And when there is, they transition very smoothly into those. Like Big Comfy Couch, too, and Bear in the Big Blue House, all of these shows that had puppets and humans at the same time, they're slow paced. The colors
Yeah.
are natural. They weren't intensifying colors to make it more attractive to the eye. They were just, this is the colors of real life, and this is what you're going to watch. So it's unfortunate the way that creators make content now. Before,
Yeah.
they made what they actually have called it themselves media meals. And then now they
Gross.
make media snacks. You could feed a kid snacks all day and they're going to be full, but they're not going to be receiving a nutritious meal. Whereas if you
Yeah.
feed them a media meal, they ate a meal, maybe they'll want a snack, but they're full from their meal. But if you consistently snack throughout the day, your brain is still hungry. And that's the comparison between back then and now. We have media snacks now, not media meals.
Yeah. When I think back to Mister Rogers, the colors are so muted also because
Mhm.
it's a sign of the times and the camera quality. But Mister Rogers, he was so authentic. He really just seemed like himself. He's talking to kids like he's very gentle, but in a very normal voice. He's not having to like grab their attention by doing jumping jacks and, speaking like this. Like, I hate that voice.
Like Blippi.
Yeah, like, he's so real, and he's sitting for a lot of the time or, like, walking slowly. What worries me about how outlandish children's TV is now, unrealistic, eye-catching, attention-grabbing,
Mhm.
when kids turn it off, real life must seem so boring. And what was it
Yeah.
that Miss Rachel said that her new baby was with her on a flight and the baby didn't want to look at the real Miss Rachel, just wanted to look at Miss Rachel on the
Yes.
show?
I remember seeing that, and I just remember cracking up because I thought, wow, she does not realize the irony in her own comments. But at the same time, people in the comments saying, oh my God, that baby is so lucky to have Miss Rachel as his mother. Like, I would never say that my child is so lucky to have another woman as their mother because I believe myself to be the best mother for him.
Yeah.
So when I see that, it's just so strange to me. But yes, when you mention that, I can't help but laugh. How can you not realize the damage of screen time when your own child won't look at you and prefers to look at a digital version of you because you've made digital you so much more entertaining than the real world?
Yeah. And I think for me, it's like, look, in the real world, in modern motherhood, especially if you don't live by family or if you are tired, you have an injury. Of course, we can argue you don't need to turn on the TV, but yeah, it is nice in those moments or like freshly postpartum to have the TV on for your toddler so you can get some time with your newborn if you don't have extra help, right? And it should be okay to do that in moderation with certain low stimulating shows. So it's like we're not demonizing all of TV all the time. Obviously, it's never really ideal. We just have to be honest. But there are absolutely some children's programming that are way, way worse. For just the Miss Rachel thing, I keep using it as an example because she is like the archetype of what is wrong. She and Coco Melon, what is
Mhm.
wrong with modern children's programming on it's so multi-layered. And the fact that there's two camps of moms. The camp of moms who like can acknowledge like, okay, yeah, like this maybe isn't ideal, but it's a last resort. I'm going to turn it on. Versus the moms who've been captured by the programming, by her. The moms were like, that baby's so lucky to have Miss Rachel. No, how about your baby so lucky to have you as their mom? And on that note, how about mom, we stop outsourcing simple communication to a lady on the TV who, again, is just very happy to get your Netflix dollars every time your
Mhm.
baby watches more. How about we start reclaiming our sovereignty when it comes to being the main force and presence for our child, the main source of inspiration? And this is the other issue with modern motherhood. Moms back in the day, like just even one generation back, it was not mom's primary job to be the entertainer for your child. We moms were never designed to be the jester, the class clown for our kid. Okay? It was like my job as mom is yeah, to raise you into being the best human being possible, lay the healthiest foundation for you and your siblings, maintain this household, and if you have a job, paying job, do whatever that job is, right? So for us to now, we're so confused in motherhood. We're like, okay, I need to have my 6 month old or whatever, sit in front of a screen and be entertained by another mother so I can clean the counters. Nah, nah.
I love that you say the jester comment because I think it's crazy that we have come to believe that we need to entertain kids 24/7 because
Yeah,
I remember being bored and telling my mom I'm bored and my mom
yeah.
just being like, "Okay, and
Like
figure it
so?
out." And
Yeah, you get two
so
options. Help me. You can help me clean or
you're going to
cook,
clean.
or you can like find, I don't know, you have like 10 puzzles, you can draw. Um, Okay, so I know because we want to talk about the autism thing too, but we've
Yes.
gotten off on so many very fun tangents. What does the most recent research say? Like, you're going to say it better than I do, but what, there's some type of a fourth autism that maybe has developed as a result of screens or?
So that comes from there's this study that was done by Princeton. And Princeton essentially what they did is they gathered up so much data from many different parents about their child's autism, as well as the different types of behaviors and traits that the child had, right? And what they realized is that there were essentially four types of autism. Two of those were completely created in the womb. So they said that all the genetic makeup, all the genetic, like de novo variations were in the womb. Then the other two, one of them was right after birth, is what they say. So this one occurred as soon as the baby was born, some of the genetic mutations occurred. And then the one that I thought was interesting, which is where I'm starting to kind of build my theory, is the fourth one discussed psychological mutations. So they said
Mm.
that the fourth one, the child had the typical development in the womb, and after they were born, they saw genetic mutations. So they did still have genetic mutations, but most of those mutations were psychological. So this is the taboo part because everybody gets upset when I say it. Autism, yes, it is genetic, but it is epigenetic. It is a
Epigenetic,
mixture
right.
of the environment with the genetics. And where screen time comes in, if we're seeing that the changes for the social delays aspect of the subtype that they labeled are psychological, well, what is a psychological factor that affects child development? Screen time is a huge psychological factor that affects development. And it's a taboo theory, but with time, I've come to start to build it a little bit more and see how different research connects to my theory. Because there's this there's this other theory by a researcher that he discusses what he called a differential susceptibility media model. And essentially, what he's saying is that children receive information differently based on their genetic makeup. So the way that they receive information from a screen is going to be different across the border depending on the context that it's being used, depending on the content, and depending on the child's experiences.
Mm.
Using that information and understanding that media can be received differently, and then seeing that there is a study by Princeton saying that their autism factors developed after birth, I can't help but piece those two together to think that possibly the child had genetic traits for autism that became heightened because of screen time.
Sure.
The best way that I can think to describe it, which I haven't explained it to anybody like this yet. Do you know in the fair how they have like those water games and the little horse that kind of runs?
Yeah.
So, genetically, if a child has autism, genetic traits, right? They are going to have a lot of visual processing because a lot of times autistic children are highly, highly visual thinkers or visual processors. So I like to think of it as the little horses in the race. We have the visual processing horse who kind of has a head start because genetic makeup determines that this child is going to be a visual processor. Now, when that horse has that head start, the race starts, we start shooting the water, and all the horses are going to start going to the end of the line. Now, with screen time, that's that visual processing horse. So with screen time, we're giving more water to the visual processing. And what happens when the race ends is that all the horses stop.
Mm.
I feel that this is what's happening with the connections of the brain for children who are being exposed to screen time at an early age that already have the genetic susceptibility of autism. Because if they're already a visual processor and we start inundating their eyes with so much visual information to process, the brain is going to think this is the most important thing. It's for me to build visual processing. So forget about the sensory aspects of taste, which I kind of say that goes into the connection of food aversions, could also be the gut biome. But then
Mhm.
there's the sound sensitivity. I'm not used to different sounds because I'm so used to the same A, B, C, D, E, right? I'm
Yeah.
so used to the good job. I'm so used to the high, happy voices that are unrealistic in the real world.
Yeah.
I'm not used to other sensory things because the only thing I touch is an iPad. So I think
Right.
that
You
people
literally need to touch grass instead,
literally
you
need to
know?
touch grass. But that's the concept and the theory that I'm trying to have people understand, that if you only nurture the visual connection to a child that is already susceptible genetically to autism, then why is it such a hard thing to believe? Why is it such a difficult concept to wrap your head around that possibly your child could not have been autistic, or your child has heightened autism symptoms because that is what you are nurturing. You're nurturing the visual aspect of it.
Right. Well, it's very confronting, I imagine, because who decides whether the TV goes on? Mom, right? Or the
Yeah,
parents, right? So, I mean, a 6-month-old isn't going to be like, let me turn on Miss Rachel. That's mom's choice. Just like it's mom's choice to buy goldfish and Oreos. That's mom's choice. Kids don't hold the credit card. Kids are not able to renew the Netflix subscription. And babies do not know how to, well, I take that back. Babies do know how to play with a remote control, but it's not ultimately their choice to play it. So that it's extremely confronting. I'm 100% with you. But until we can just acknowledge, like, okay, once you know the information, don't beat yourself up over it, but change,
exactly.
change, do
And it's
something
not
different.
even and it's not even saying like you cause your child to be autistic. It's saying your child is already a visual processor, so continuing to give visual information is just going to heighten those symptoms. But like you said, if you have the information, then change. There's
Right.
so many parents that I've worked with, and I do it completely for free. So it always pisses me off
Wow.
when people on Instagram say, "Oh, you're just doing it for the money." I'm a student, so I'm like broke half the time, and it's not
Right.
even for the money; it's for the information. But there's so many parents that I work with that they cut out screen time, and they come back to me 6 months later, a year later, and they tell me what a difference in communication, what a difference in eye contact, what a
Yeah.
difference in the way my child plays. And they just tell
Yeah.
me, I can't believe that it was affecting my child so much. And yes, their child is autistic. It's not like there's a cure, but their child is autistic. They just see such a difference in their self skills. It's
Yeah.
such a
The
change.
symptoms are more manageable. So, do you know any information on this? Like, if Miss Rachel, because I know she's very active on Instagram, if there's ever people in the comments who are saying, like, this show actually isn't ideal for child development, or like, what do you think is a good age for kids to watch your show? Like, what has she said in the past in regards to that?
I wish I could find it. I saw it once because someone posted it on their Instagram, and I think maybe if someone like dives deep into his Instagram, it's at uschooler. He
Yeah.
actually screenshot a video where someone commented saying, "I would love to start showing your show to my child. What's a great age to start?" And her response was, "I actually have no idea when children should start watching screen time,
No
but that there
idea.
was like no harm in showing her show." Obviously,
Yeah.
she's gonna say that.
Yeah. Of
I always
course.
say she's an evil genius. She gives the poison and also the antidote.
The hilarious thing is anyone can just like that mom. I'm glad she asked Miss Rachel so we can all see Miss Rachel's lies. But that mom could easily chat GPT that question. You can Google it. You can see for yourself what the AAP says. Last time I checked, they're saying like wait till 2. Maybe they've changed it. We know there's nuance, but the fact that you pretend that you have no idea. I mean, obviously you're in it for the money, which is okay. Like do something for the money, but do it ethically. Do it ethically.
Mhm.
Don't pretend like you're actually teaching children communication. You're just getting them hooked on something else. Okay, so do we have, I know we're almost up here. Do you have any recent research or studies that show anything brand new about screen time's effects on kids that you haven't shared before?
I would say that there's newer studies that just discuss more so on the autistic side, autistic children that have a high connection to letters and numbers. And they mention in the study that some of the parents say that their child started to develop this connection to letters and numbers at a very young age, or like 18 months or like 12 months old. And one of
Wow.
the parents in the study says, yes, she always requested videos that had letters and numbers. Your child is not even a year old. They cannot request to watch something. And then it's the idea of, well, they love letters and numbers. Well, if that's what you're drilling your child with every single day, then they are going to build an emotional connection. And it's that aspect of we're building secure attachments to objects instead of
I'm
building
so
secure
sad.
attachment to humans. And honestly, the newest research discusses just the long lasting, everlasting, for the rest of their life damages that screen time does to the brain. It changes the amount of fat that's in the brain. And that's like the easiest way that I can put it. It changes the amount of fat and protein that's in a brain. And we need fat and protein in our brain to be able to build a healthy brain. So if we're at such an early age diminishing that because of screen time, and we're just saying, oh, well, it'll get fixed later, it's not. It's a lifelong effect.
But what about neuroplasticity? Because you also hear on the flip side, like, hey, whatever damage has been done, we're very neuroplastic. Like, you can revise that. What are your thoughts on that?
And I agree. I love talking about neuroplasticity because yes, we can change our brain, but we can we can adapt our brain. We can change our brain. It doesn't mean we can build a new brain. It's the same concept of if you break a bone, you're going to put it in a cast and we're going to work ourselves through
Hmm.
therapy to help build that bone its strength again. Is the bone ever going to be the same again? No. But we could work ourselves to build some strength to that bone. It doesn't mean that it's never not going to be broken. So we're still going
Hmm.
to have a broken bone. It's going to be a healed bone, and it's going to be a bone that took a lot of effort to build that strength, but it's always going to be broken. So it's that aspect of yes, we can work our brain with neuroplasticity, but the effects of screen time will always be there.
Okay, what would you say to parents who tell you, Andreina, what is the big deal? What's the harm? My kid has never been happier. They are laughing. They're quiet and calm and regulated, and they love these letters and numbers. So what's wrong? They're not smoking cigarettes. They're not asking me for a cup of whiskey. What's your problem? What's your beef with me?
To that, I would respond, you don't know your child until you remove screen time. Because
Oh,
what you're seeing is a child that is regulated to screen time, a child who is loving screen time. So you have not gotten to know your child, and I know that's gonna hurt some bones, that's gonna
yeah.
hurt some hearts, but my personal opinion, you have not gotten to know your child until you remove screen time because they have interests, they have desires, they have things that they like, which you will not find out until you remove those screens.
Yeah, I have a really just quick, sad anecdote. So this was like at the end of 2023. We were invited to someone's house. We were moving, so we never ended up seeing them again. But like it was a really lovely couple. We just met impromptu when we were out. They happened to have a little girl who was 4 years old. So she was quite a bit older than our son at the time, who was just under a year and a half and had literally never seen a screen. Um, I kid you not, like not a single minute of a single show. He's 16 months old. Rare nowadays. So we're at their house and she's like, bring your son. It'll be so much fun. I was so excited. I was like, oh, yay, he'll have a little playmate and, they'll have so much fun. I used to love going over and like hanging with new friends because we'd play dress up and like make plays for the parents and so much make believe, just so much imagination back then. So meanwhile, then they sit at the kids' table. We're having dinner at their house. And poor Julian, he is staring at her. She's sitting across from him at the kids' table, watching something, I kid you not, a show on her tablet in their home the entire dinner. And my husband and I kind of just stare because we're extremely uncomfortable by this. So he's staring and eating his pasta. He's 16 months old, watching this 4 year old who's not even looking at him, just looking down at her tablet while she eats. And then the mom later said to me, because I was trying to make conversation with her daughter, the 4 year old, like, how you liking school? She said, shh, 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 shh. She shushed me, the mom. She goes, shh, shh, don't, she goes, don't do that. Don't do that. I'm like, oh, what happened? What's wrong? And she goes, no, no, no. It's good for her, the show. It keeps her calm. It keeps her calm.
Oh,
I said,
wow.
oh, so I thought, oh, I'm not even supposed to talk to her.
Interact.
No, don't. So, it again, look, this is gonna be really harsh, moms, and look, I'm not anti-screens, but we have to be real, we have to use discernment. The screens are a pacifier for moms. I said it. It's it's because moms don't wanna hear they want the break, okay? And certain shows do a better job. Let's just
I
be
agree.
smarter, let's just be real with the screens. When mommy needs a break, that's okay, but let's be honest, okay? Let's not ignore the research that Andreina has.
I agree with you. We all need a break, but we need to be healthy about it.
Yes, yes. So, wow, thank you so much. I know we could talk about this all day. I'm so passionate about this topic, just like you are. And I'm going to leave Andreina's Instagram handle in the episode show notes. Please go follow along. I know that you have probably some new research coming out that you'll, I'm sure, share on your
Yes.
Instagram account. Fantastic. Andreina, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You as well.